There we go. Good evening. How's everyone doing? I know this is not an episode of Mr. Rogers with my nice sweater. Just got back from ballroom dancing. But we are back with the Northeast Bull Rush with my friend John from the Big Northeast Pod. Before we get started, John, any opening thoughts? How's everything going?
Hey, things are good, man. It's almost basketball season.
Yeah, it should be a great year in the Northeast. I've seen your tweets about the Big East. Love reading about it too, and especially the A10 as well with St. Bonaventure with their first ranking since I believe that'd be the Nixon administration.
It's been quite a while. Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but I think it was in the 70s. So yeah, that tracks.
It's weird. It's weird that they haven't been ranked in the last 50 years. Solid program, but yeah, basketball's on the horizon. It's great.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, starting off with we're gonna focus more on certain teams and bowl scenarios and destinations rather than in the past with the three bowls. We sort of went that trend last week. So any takeaways from this past week? I kind of want to know your thoughts on the Syracuse Boston College result, which Cuse is gonna be the first one we're gonna talk about. But I was surprised by it. I thought it'd be a closer game. Yeah, I was just really shocked.
I was surprised that it was so low scoring. I think it was 29-6 or 24, something like that. 20 something to 6. But I mean, we sat here last week. I said, I'll toot my own horn a little bit, that I was pretty confident that Cuse is going to win. They seem to be trending up while BC seem to be trending down. So I wasn't shocked, but yeah, it was lower scoring than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Sean Tucker, another great game. Looks to have a great future for the program. And with the way things are trending with Kenneth Walker, maybe we might see a comeback of the running backs in the Heisman race in future years. But I don't want to leap too far with that. So heading into the final three games, do you see Syracuse winning at least one of those? They have a tough last three games. Do you think they make it to 6 wins?
It's a little tough. It is in the ACC. So, even though Pitt is higher ranked, they could definitely fall off the Cuse. The game at Louisville is a bit of a toss-up, I'd say. And then NC State looks like a tough one as well. So I think they win one of those. I'll give them 1 and 2, get to 6 and 6. We talked about Tucker. He's been tremendous. Schrader has been a little hit and miss. I think he only had like 65 yards in the air last week against BC. So he's got to kind of pick that up a little bit. But I think they get one more win, and I think they get bowl eligible.
I agree with that one. I'd say either the Louisville game or the NC State. To be honest with you, I'm not as sold on NC State as I guess other people would be. Yes, they did beat Clemson, but we've seen how Clemson's played. And I think the most telling result honestly, is the game against Louisiana Tech, where Tech was very close. They played them very close, and that's a Tech team that hasn't played to standard this year. They just lost to Old Dominion as well. So that's the most telling result, I think, of the NC State team. Don't think they're as good as people say. And I think Cuse takes that one to go either that one or the Louisville game, even though I think Louisville is probably one of the better teams in the Atlantic people aren't talking about. So I'd pick that one, the NC State game, over Louisville as a win for Syracuse. So
yeah, I mean, I was gonna say it's the ACC, and with Clemson in a down year, anybody could really beat anybody. I know Wake and Pitt have looked better than most, but I'm not like super confident in those teams either. So I think Cuse has got a pretty good shot to get one more win.
So as for destination, do you see them going to the Pinstripe Bowl or going to one of the ACC's lower bowls with a 6 and 6 record? Past projections have had them going to the First Responder Bowl, I think, against Purdue, oddly enough. That was last week. I don't think they're in that this week, looking at the Action Network and the other projections. So where do you see Syracuse landing if they do make a bowl?
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones that we talked about, Pinstripe, Fenway, Military, certainly those are all within range. You just mentioned First Responder. I saw that on a couple of different projections. I also saw the Guaranteed Rate Bowl for them. So really, I think it's anywhere in that in that kind of sweet spot for Cuse, and I think for BC as well. If they we'll talk about them a little bit more, but if they do end up making a bowl, I think they're probably right in the same, being considered for the same bowls. So I know I've been saying for a while, I hope they get to the Fenway or potentially the military selfishly, for some regional pride here. But any of those would be, I think, sufficient.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to use that to play off onto another team. So with the Pinstripe Bowl, a couple of projections had Penn State. Actually, CBS had Penn State going to the Pinstripe Bowl against Virginia Tech. Do you see the Pinstripe Bowl trying to set up a matchup between Syracuse and Penn State, regional rivals of old, or is the record too much of an obstacle for that one? As in, well, I guess the gap in records, which Penn State would probably end the season at 10-2, 9-3, and Syracuse at 6-6.
I mean, I'm not that optimistic for Penn State at 10-2. Even 9-3 might be difficult. They have to win out to get to 9-3, which is certainly possible, but I don't think the gap in record would be that tremendous. I do think Penn State would be favored by quite a lot, whether they're 8-4, 9-3, even if they were 7-5. I still think they'd be favored quite a lot over Cuse. So the gap would be there. I think I like either of those matchups. If we could get the old right. I mean, I think Cuse has the most wins over a ranked Penn State team all time, something like that. I mean, that's like some of the old heads talk about, like a rivalry for Penn State. Or I would love that Virginia Tech matchup as well. Give us the game that we were robbed of from COVID last year, and that's a great regional game as well. A lot of recruits from the DMV area on both rosters. So I would love either of those matchups. I think, the record, if Penn State wins out or gets close to it, the records might be a little bit too lopsided, but there's no guarantee of that happening.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I forgot they had lost 3 games. That's on me right there. But yeah, even I do agree. I guess the gap is just like the perception with Penn State being in the thick of the title race. I guess as late as mid-October, excuse me. That perception that has kind of being like, a huge gap between the teams, which there is, but I mean, it's still a rivalry, like you say. Something I want to bring up for Penn State tie-ins is a lot of these tie-ins a lot of these projections have them going really, I guess, far destinations. Like I think CBS or not CBS, but Action Network has them going to the Las Vegas Bowl. ESPN has them going to the Music City Bowl. Do you see Penn State's brand name carrying them westward to another bowl, or do you think it's more likely to stay local, particularly the Pinstripe Bowl?
I think if they had their druthers, they'd probably travel if it was a more prestigious bowl. Penn State travels pretty well. They have a tremendous alumni network. So I think they'd go for the more prestigious bowl rather than the local Pinstripe Bowl if it came down to that. If it was the Pinstripe Bowl and I don't know, something that was deemed less prestigious, I think they'd stay local, play if they had the choice of, if it was Cuse or Virginia Tech in that Pinstripe Bowl. I think that would probably be a pretty compelling matchup as well for for the Penn State decision makers. So yeah, I think it depends on the caliber of the bowl.
Yeah, and it's interesting with that because the Big Ten has a lot of far bowl destinations, and with a team with a brand name in the season that Penn State's had, you would think like Outback Bowl, Citrus Bowl's maybe out of reach, but I think that might be Michigan, or if Ohio State has 2 losses, then Ohio State. Yeah, maybe Ohio State goes to Citrus Bowl instead if they have some sort of slide. But I think Penn State might be out of the Florida Bowls, but definitely the Las Vegas Bowl is definitely a possibility. I think it's interesting that ESPN, both analysts, Mark Schlabach and Kyle Bonagura, are sold on Penn State going to Nashville, which I mean, I'm not so sure that I think Purdue would be a better fit for that game, but they did play in 2018, but it's also been 3 years. So I don't know how often the folks in West Lafayette end up going to the Music City, but I can't imagine it's often.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but yeah, I think I'd personally prefer Purdue in that. Who are they were they projecting Tennessee in the Music City Bowl as well?
No, so one of them had Arkansas, which would be a pretty solid game, and the other one had LSU, which I can't vouch for how competitive that game would be. Honestly, I don't think it would be that competitive.
Yeah, I kind of like the Arkansas matchup for Penn State, honestly, but I know Arkansas has fallen off as has Penn State, so I haven't watched a ton of Arkansas recently, but yeah, I do think Penn State is. They were overranked at 4 or or whatever their ranking was. When they played Iowa. I think they're underranked now at 23 or whatever. But I mean, I think it's justified since they've lost 3 games in a row now. I think they will end up winning probably 3 out of their final 4. So I think they'll probably settle in around 12 to 15 in the overall rankings or thereabouts. So I think it'll be if Arkansas is able to kind of rebound as well a little bit, it might be a fun matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like Arkansas has gone off the grid really the past couple of weeks after that Georgia game. But I do agree, kind of star-studded. I mean, good quarterback battle with KJ Jefferson and Sean Clifford, a healthy Sean Clifford, hopefully. But should be fun to see. So moving on to our next team and going back to the ACC, we got Boston College. I want to know your thoughts on their bowl eligibility possibilities. They're 4-4, I believe, right now, but they're really struggling. Do you think they make it to 6-6 with their remaining schedule?
So we talked about this a bit last week. 4 games left: Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Wake. I think, as we just talked about, kind of anybody could beat anybody in the ACC this year, but I think BC is definitely trending in the wrong direction. Some of these games look like coin flips on paper, but I think they're not in actuality. So I'm not confident at all in BC to get 2 wins here. I think they maybe get to 5-7, surprise somebody. I think probably anybody except for Wake, unless that's just like a tremendous trap game at the end of the year. But yeah, I don't love their chances, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I agree, honestly. And looking at some projections, like you said, anyone can beat anyone in the ACC. Almost as hard to predict as the MAC is. Speaking of Maction, but the Action Network has Boston College going to Texas, finishing some unsettled business at the First Responder Bowl. If you remember 2018, the game that was canceled, and the 2018 canceled First Responder Bowl against Arizona State, and I don't think they match up well against the Sun Devils. Brett McMurphy has them as 10-point underdogs to the Sun Devils. So I can see them being sent westward to one of the ACC's poorer bowls, and not sent to the Fenway, especially if they get an SMU team or a Houston team in the Fenway Bowl and want to create a made-for-TV matchup. And I'm seeing a Sam Howell versus Tanner Mordecai matchup, North Carolina SMU with the Action Network. So that's sort of the way I see it. I think if they do make the 6 games, they get sent to pretty much one of the screw you type bowls. So
yeah, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it though, because I don't think they're getting there.
I want to ask though, like, where do you think they would have ended up with a healthy Phil Dracovic?
I mean, I was predicting ahead of the season, I think like 9-3 for them with a healthy Dracovic. And I think maybe I was drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit much, like in that early season. I think I was like, oh, BC might be going to the playoffs, So, but I do think now looking back on it, I think 9-3 with a healthy Dracovic sounds reasonable, especially with Clemson being down. It was not something we knew before the season. So what bowl that would put them in, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, I think 9-3 sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'd say a 9-3 record lands them in either the Holiday or the Sun Bowl, honestly. Well, maybe not the Sun Bowl. But yeah, well, I guess in terms of other bowls, CBS has hope for Boston College, has them going to the Military Bowl against UCF in a battle of teams with fallen quarterbacks. Don't know if they did that on purpose, but should be interesting if that happens. But yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more optimistic with Boston College. I mean, I see Virginia Tech. I see a team that's probably going to fire their coach soon in Justin Fuente. And it's a Friday night, probably going to be a red bandana game. And I am a firm believer in the red bandana magic. So that's 5 wins right there. Georgia Tech, it's still not coming together out in Atlanta under Jeff Collins. So I think they end at 6-6. I think Florida State's coming on strong, and then of course Wake Forest. So I'm more optimistic, but of course we'll see how it plays out.
We will.
Moving on to I guess I wanted to add one more because one more school because I kind of forgot about them. But Maryland won their fifth game against Indiana, and if we're looking at how they match up against Rutgers, I think they're definitely the better team. For Maryland, really quick, do you see them going out west? I don't think the Pinstripe Bowl goes for Maryland if they have, I guess, other. I mean, particularly Penn State first off, but I guess other teams in the Big Ten East to choose from. Right now, ESPN has an intriguing matchup between Maryland and West Virginia in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl out of Phoenix. Nice regional rivalry. So, where do you think Maryland ends up bowl wise?
Oh, they have West Virginia and Maryland in that?
Yeah, well, ESPN does. ESPN has that
Okay.
game projected, which is pretty dope.
Because didn't they play? I think they played like first game of the season already, didn't they?
They did, and I think I mean I don't know if they overlooked that or just weren't aware at the moment, but and I guess the rivalry is that much desired.
I mean, I would love it. I mean, I'm a regional guy. I think it would be a great like rematch. You don't often see that, and it's especially I'm hoping to get West Virginia into the ACC, get Maryland back there one day too. Just make make it a whole continuous conference at some point here. But yeah, I still think Rutgers pulls off that game last game of the season. Maybe Maryland, honestly, like pulls off the upset against Penn State. I'm a little bit more worried about that. I don't know, maybe my delusional Penn State fandom here, but I mean, if Penn State could lose to Illinois, it seems like every year they suffer at least two, maybe three losses surrounding that Ohio State week. They just either get into a trap game or get into a whatchamacallit, like a emotional like late night game that carries over to the next week, and sometimes both. So I'm a little worried, honestly, about the Penn State Maryland game. So I think they lose to Rutgers, but maybe they still get to 6 wins. So I'd love to see them in the Pinstripe Bowl personally, if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean the old ACC matchups would be beautiful. I mean maybe not Virginia Tech, but we can get Virginia Maryland for that game. That would be beautiful. But I mean I totally see them either getting sent to Arizona, being Maryland, not much of a big brand football wise, or the other projections. Action Network has Maryland going to the Quick Lane Bowl against Northern Illinois as the CBS Sports, which makes a lot of sense. That Maryland being the 6-6 team of the Big Ten, and having that reputation, sort of carrying the flag as in, hey, don't embarrass us against the MAC. And I don't think, I don't know if Maryland went to Michigan for either the Michigan State game or Michigan. They might have went for either one, but Detroit might be a fun trip for the fans. They went back in 2016 against Boston College. So yeah, I see that scenario playing out rather than the Pinstripe Bowl or or Arizona. I think or the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Arizona. So moving on to our final team, probably the team that in Pitt, as in the favorite for the Lambert Trophy. Maybe Penn State's a close second, but it's interesting because CBS thinks that Pitt can beat Wake Forest, in the ACC title game, while ESPN does not think as much, as does Action Network. So first off, do you think Pitt wins the ACC title game? Thinking about other conferences, that wins the ACC title game against Wake, a Wake team that probably would not have any ranked wins up to that point.
That's a stay away game, I think, for me. I don't know who I would bet on it, but I wouldn't be confident in either team, honestly. It will be a fun game. I'll definitely watch. They might put up 200 points between the two of them, but I don't know who I would love to win it. Now, Pitt has to get there. Both teams obviously have to get there first, but Pitt has a game against UVA, right? That if they lose that game and UVA continues to win out, UVA might be in the championship game. Do I have that correct?
Oh, yeah, you do. I mean, UVA did lose to BYU, but no bearing on the standings. But I agree. I mean, Brennan Armstrong and the Cavaliers are really playing well this year.
So I think gun to my head, if Pitt and Wake both get there, I think I'm picking Pitt personally, but I wouldn't feel confident in betting that at all. What about you?
I mean, me either, but I think geez, and I'd hate to say the eye test because I hate that term, but looking at the way Wake Forest has played week in, week out, after all they're undefeated, after all they dropped 70 on Army defense, that was solid last year, was solid for the most part this year. Um, I got to think. I got to think Wake's a better team. And the loss to Miami. I mean, Pitt's just got those ugly losses. Like Western Michigan is very solid, but if you're a team of Pitt's caliber this year, you shouldn't be losing to Western Michigan. If you're in a Power Five conference race, you shouldn't be losing to Miami at home. I mean, so I got to go Wake Forest because of as much as I hated the eye test.
Yeah. I mean, maybe to me, it's, Pitt with maybe a slightly higher ceiling, but certainly a way lower floor. And Wake with not quite that as high of a ceiling, in my opinion, but a higher floor. So I guess it depends on which Pitt team shows up to the championship game if they make it there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it seems like you don't know which Pitt team you're going to get in some weeks. Just another bipolar team. It's strange. In terms of bowl games, so ESPN has them going to, well, both analysts, Boniger and Schlebeck, have them going to the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, which is usually like the highest bowl after the New Year's Six. And that's a star-studded bowl game. You got Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, Kenny Pickett. Should be a fun one in Orlando. Action Network has them, or actually I'll go to CBS. CBS Sports has them going to the Peach Bowl against Ole Miss. Should be fun. Matt Corral versus Kenny Pickett. Would love to see that one. While Action Network has them going to the Gator Bowl, and Pitt's sort of a wild card in terms of bowl destinations because they went to the Sun Bowl in 2018. They went to the Quick Lane Bowl in 2019. Of course, not an ACC tie-in anymore, not an ACC tie-in anymore. But they haven't made an appearance in Florida in a while. So if we're up to me, I think they would go either the Camping World Bowl, being that better ACC team if Notre Dame doesn't go to the New Year's Six, I think, or the Gator Bowl, which they have them going against Auburn in the Gator Bowl.
The Auburn matchup would be a little bit spicy because then you'd have the Pitt versus Penn State kind of proxy war against Auburn. So we'd see, how well Pitt does. And then there'd be all the, the Western PA trash talking amongst the two fan bases. So I'd like that. Yeah, I mean, any of them would be great. I'm honestly looking more forward to the ACC championship game right now. If they make it there, I really want to see that Wake Pitt matchup. But in terms of bowl games, yeah, the Auburn matchup will be cool. The Peach Bowl would be great. Just such a prestigious game. Get Pitt in there. Cheez-It Bowl is funny for the memes. I would hope that that Pickett doesn't follow in some of his forebears' footsteps there and keeps the ball out of the hands of the opposition. But that game always seems to be wacky just for whatever reason. So any of them would be fun, but Pitt's gonna Pitt.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's interesting is I think Pitt fans have a reputation of not traveling well. I think you can vouch for that more. I haven't seen the attendance this year, but there's been some Pitt games at Heinz Field that just haven't had a good atmosphere. And I remember like a few years back, Pitt won 8-4, but the fact that they didn't travel well had them sent to the Military Bowl, which was in the bottom tier of the ACC bowls in 2015 to play against Navy. So I think that kind of gets in the way. But I got to think sort of like as we're in the back end of this pandemic, what's better than a nice trip to Florida in December if you're a Pitt fan to cap off probably your best year since either the Tyler Palco season in 2004 or the near BCS Bowl in 2009. I don't know. So I got to think maybe Pitt travels well, but that might be in the back of bowl organizers' heads. So.
Yeah, they've had a rough time at Heinz Field. It's just I don't know what team that doesn't have like an on-campus stadium, plays in an NFL stadium actually has like a good, game day atmosphere and fills the stadium. I don't know how many teams are in that boat, but it would seem to me that if they had an on-campus stadium, they would have a much easier job in filling it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst that it could be because like looking at Temple, UCF marquee team coming into town. There are a lot of people in Philadelphia had better things to do. So that's just one example. And of course, UCF or USF, excuse me, USF has they become a meme at times at the Ray J. But yeah, like I mean, in a year like this, I guess, and I've looked at the attendance numbers, so I could be falsely accusing Pitt fans of disloyalty, but yeah, I guess it's hard when you haven't had a Tony Dorsett in a while, a Tony Dorsett season, a Dan Marino type season in a long time. I guess it's hard to get fans to pretty much the Steelers. What is the Steelers crib? What's known better as the Steelers crib and not where Pitt plays. So
Yeah, no, I don't think you're doing any false accusations here. I mean, I haven't gone and seen for myself, but from what I've seen on social media, the Pitt fans would probably agree with you. They would be a little bit incredulous of their fellow fans for not coming out, supporting the team when, especially, I mean, they lost to Western Michigan early on, but aside from that, they were getting some real buzz with Kenny Pickett. I mean, I think part of it was it just came out of nowhere. Like nobody was really expecting this. I mean, not even I don't think Kenny himself was expecting this great of a season from him. If there was a little bit more fanfare ahead of time, I think you probably would have seen better attendance.
yeah, and maybe this builds next year. I like to see what happens next year, but of course, Kenny Pickett will probably be gone. Well, I definitely will be gone.
Oh yeah,
so
he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. No super duper senior there, but we'll see if that sets the foundation for next year. But yeah, Pitt should be an interesting bowl team come December for Selection Sunday. So we'll see till then. I'm not sure what the ranking is in the playoff rankings. I only saw the top 10 and was just wanted to close Twitter because it's aggravating. But yeah.
Yeah, as much as I hate Cincinnati from some of those UConn Cincinnati basketball matchups and some of the trash talking that went on through there, I feel bad for them, man. I feel like they've gotten so much disrespect from the committee just now and across like social media and other places. Just what do they have to do to get into the playoff?
I mean, it's like they had the 2 years of credibility, which is such nonsense. So the 2 years of credibility, they're probably going to be an 11-1 team in Notre Dame, top 10 win. And yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, it is, and that's why the playoff needs to expand to at least 6. I think, maybe I think 8's a sweet spot, but 6 at least. But yeah, I guess we turn this into CFP venting session on this podcast. It's just aggravating to say the least. But I think that wraps up our bowl talk. Do you have anything final to say, John?
Let me vent one thing on the CFP.
Okay.
Just quickly, indulge me here. The thing that I hate most about it is that the committee's mandate is to pick the 4 best teams, not the 4 most deserving, the 4 with the best resume, because then they've made that their mandate of we're gonna just look at who doesn't matter. Ohio State is better than Oregon, even though Oregon beat them head to head. Alabama is better than everyone else except for Georgia, even though Bama lost to Texas A&M. They pick. Their mandate of finding the best teams is, I don't know. It should be criminal. I think there's no point in playing the games if you're not going to say we need to pick the most deserving or the best resume teams. And I'll leave it at that. I could go on forever, but that's it for now.
And I'll piggyback off that in terms of if the games don't matter, because last year we saw it with Louisiana and Iowa State. Iowa State being consistently ranked ahead of Louisiana in the playoff, even though Louisiana played. Like, why play the games in the field if they're not going to matter? I'm surprised, frankly, that they ranked Oregon ahead of Ohio State. So I'll give the playoff that much credit, as much as I hate to give the playoff credit. But I mean, this is a bowl podcast. The playoff involves bowls, so I guess we're on track.
Yeah, put Cincinnati in, you cowards.
Yeah, exactly. Or we'll have to call the Sickos committee on the CFP. So on that note, this has been great, and another great week of college football. Pretty much all week of college football. With the MAC playing their weeknight games. So tune in throughout the week and keep following those bowls, especially up in the Northeast. Peace, love, and soul, everyone.